Good morning and welcome back to In the Corner. I'm Cash. We're here with episode 14. Very big news this week, all throughout the week, with all the Canelo stuff. We're going to talk more about that. Some huge developments were made overnight. This entire week has been a roller coaster. We went from Canelo and Crawford seemingly being confirmed to then hearing that he'll fight Jake Paul before then, to then hearing that the Crawford fight is off, to hearing that the Jake Paul fight is nearly a done deal, to now hearing that there's no Jake Paul fight, the Crawford fight is back on, and now there's a 4-fight, 2-year plan with Riyadh season. So, whole lot to talk about there. We're also going to talk about UFC 312 this weekend, down under, with Dricus du Plessis and Strickland rematching. We'll talk about the Eye of the Tiger card last night, the other cards this week, and we have Derek Chisora and Otto Wallin and some other smaller ones, and then whatever news has gone on in the last few days. So let's just get right into it. I'm going to start with the Canelo stuff. So just to recap, Tuesday in the morning we find out that Canelo and Crawford are essentially plans are in place, and didn't say that deals have been signed, but it had confirmed. And it was Ring Magazine, who's Turkey's media arm. So very much, confirming yeah, this is happening. Then we hear, it's for September in Vegas. Then we hear, okay, it's going to be September 13th. Then we hear it's going to be at Allegiant Stadium, not T-Mobile Arena. It's going to be in a stadium. So it's all right, awesome. This is looking good. The next day, or maybe it was later Tuesday night, I think it was the next day, though, we hear that Canelo and Jake Paul are in deep discussions for a May 3rd fight, for his Cinco de Mayo fight. And we don't really hear too much about that. We just hear that, it's looking like it could happen. Then we hear, I think Thursday morning, that the Canelo and Crawford fight is now off. Less than 2 days after being confirmed. It's canceled. That we don't really know why exactly. It's, kind of questionable. Then Thursday afternoon, it gets confirmed that Jake and Canelo are in deep negotiations. They're going to finalize a May 3rd fight that would be on Netflix. Co-promotion between MVP, PBC, and Canelo Promotions. It'd be live on Netflix. It'd be at 200 pounds, be at the T-Mobile Arena in Vegas. And it seems like this is what's going to happen. It seems like, and Jake is tweeting and stuff kind of alluding to it. So it seems, okay, this is actually happening. We're actually going to see Canelo fight Jake Paul, which I can't even begin to fathom. But that was the point we were at. Then last night, His Excellency, through the Ring Magazine, confirms that he is suspending efforts to make the fight with Canelo and Crawford, and is now looking to make Crawford versus Boots later this year, with the reasoning being the Jake Paul fight, that he doesn't want to negotiate with Crawford when Canelo's taking another option, as opposed to his 3-fight plan at the time for Canelo. Overnight, we wake up this morning to see that Canelo has now changed his mind. I think because of His Excellency's persuasion there, he's dropping the Jake Paul fight. He now has a 4-fight plan with His Excellency, and he's confirmed it. So, and it seems like it's signed, sealed, and delivered. So May, he's going to fight in Saudi Arabia against either, and again, this isn't confirmed or anything, but the names that Mike Coppinger reported were Jermall Charlo or Bruno Saras. September 13th will be in Vegas against Crawford, of course. He'll be back in February, not May, February of 2026, where he'll fight. The names there were Dimitri Bivol rematch, Chris Eubank Jr., or Hamza Shiraz. And then he'd fight again in Riyadh in October 2026. It seems that February and October are their big cards, and I'm really excited because it seems that they're going to be doing. We know that His Excellency had been planning for us to see Garcia and Haney rematch in October, and then fight again on that February card. It seems like the Garcia and Haney and Teofimo and Boots fight, if that's still the plan, that 4-man tournament, would be on the same card as Canelo's return. I mean, this guy is just stacking all these insane fighters on the same card. It's nuts. It's nuts. We're getting all these big fights, and they're all going to be together. I mean, just imagine Canelo Crawford, period. It's going to be in a stadium in Vegas. Imagine what fights they're going to put on that undercard. I mean, He doesn't need an undercard, and it may not. As we saw with Fury Usyk, when it's the big main event and they have to spend a lot of money into producing that main event, the undercard isn't always the level of, say the February 22nd card, where that main event is huge, but it's not. They don't demand as much money, so they have the undercard. They have way more money to pay all these amazing fighters to fight on the undercard. It'll still be a great card nonetheless, I bet. But yes, that's where we're at with Canelo. As for what I think about this 4-fight plan, I think that the Charlo and Saras fights are hugely disappointing just because both guys have fought, I think, one time at super middleweight in their recent fights. Did Saras beat Munguia, knock him out in a way that Canelo didn't? Yes, he did. I'd rather see Saras and Munguia rematch because that was a fight where Munguia was totally beating him. He honestly was en route to a stoppage later in the fight probably, and Saras landed a great shot. I mean, all credit to him, but it was a lucky shot. So I think they should totally run that one back. That makes way more sense than Saras automatically getting the Canelo fight off of one win over a former Canelo opponent. No, that doesn't make any sense. There are so many other good 168-pounders that are in line. He should fight Christian and Billy. He should fight William Skull to reunify the division. Diego Pacheco, Osley Iglesias. There's so many fighters there that he could fight in his division, and he's not. And I understand the Jermall Charlo fight if it was a PBC card, because PBC doesn't have a ton to offer him. They did the Jermall fight. There's kind of a storyline there, I guess, but I mean, Jermall Charlo has been so inactive that I don't even think that he doesn't deserve a world title fight. He definitely doesn't deserve a Canelo fight, and I don't think that he'd do any good to Canelo. It doesn't make any sense for me. Meanwhile, I don't even know which one of those fights I prefer. Probably the Charlo fight just because he's a bigger name. Saras just isn't even a big name, which would make it really weird. Especially for Canelo to turn down Skull because he wasn't a big name. And Saras is probably a bigger name than Skull is now, but Skull is also probably a bigger name now because he has a world championship on his belt. So, I don't know. That fight is kind of a disappointing. I'd rather him defend the undisputed championship or unified championship against somebody, who's in the division. I'd love him to fight in Billy, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. September fights Terence Crawford. February, the names being discussed are Dimitri Bivol, which I love. I love that rematch. That makes a ton of sense. It'll be a long time coming. Say Canelo beats Crawford. He's got a ton of big wins since then. Put him in there with the Bivol rematch. I love that fight. And then the other names they talked about were Eubank and Shiraz. The Eubank one had been discussed, and I know that the Shiraz fight, they said that they had been offered at one point. I don't think either of those fights really make a lot of sense. I mean, there's a chance that Shiraz could be the number one guy in the division, in the middleweight division, by the time that month rolls around. He probably will be. But I don't know. I don't like seeing like the cross division. I mean, you got so many good guys at 168 that you could fight instead. And Chris Eubank is a big name. So I guess, why you would want to do that, but it wouldn't be competitive at all. Shiraz would actually give Canelo some problems. Not that he would beat Canelo, but, Canelo would have to be on his A game. I don't know if I really think that Shiraz has the star power. He definitely has the star power in the UK. I mean, he's more star power than, say, Saras, but they're enough star power to jump up divisions to go and fight Canelo. Like, there are just other people who are more deserving. And then October, we don't know who he would fight. I don't know. I don't love this plan, especially because the names listed, I think that there's 6 overall names. Not one of them is 168-pounders, really. None of them, which I just think is ridiculous. So, it's whatever. Regardless, Canelo's going to be working with throughout season, putting on big events, big fights. Hopefully, at least the Crawford fight will be a big fight. I'm excited for that. As for what Jake Paul does from here, he's got tons of other options. I mean, he literally has like 4 different paths he can take with his career. I wonder how he's going to handle this, though, because he's somebody that is not afraid of making enemies. And usually, if it were, say it were Eddie Hearn or Al Heyman instead of His Excellency, who was the guy who just kind of pulled this 11th hour, switcheroo, Jake would probably go on Twitter or YouTube and make a whole, public social media assault campaign against them, and would, start a look what he does with Dana White. He'd do the same thing. I'm curious, is he going to do that with His Excellency? Or is he going to try and stay on his good side? Because Turkey has no interest in working with Jake Paul or any other YouTubers. And Jake Paul is a little bit different than the other YouTubers. He takes it more seriously, and he's trying to enter the boxing space. The other YouTubers are trying to stay in the YouTube boxing space. So, I mean, I could see them working together some way, but I don't know. It seems that His Excellency really has no interest with Jake Paul and doesn't like him very much. So I wonder if Jake will just say, all right, well, screw you, man, because that's totally the type of person he is. And if he does, that'd be really interesting to see somebody really push back against His Excellency. Like Tank kind of has and just says, I'm not going to kiss his ass, which is just funny. Jake would really go for his throat. But I don't know if he's going to do that. I think he may try and take the respect route. We'll see. Before we break down the cards we're this weekend, I just want to talk about the card that was last night. We went out of the Tiger Show. It was pretty good. 6 fights. 5 of them went the distance, all at, within the first 3 rounds, I think. It's pretty good. Last minute, Bakodir Jalalev pulled out of his fight. He was unwell, ill, not fit to continue, whatever. Which sucks because, he was at the Olympics, but we haven't seen him fight professionally for a while. Seems like he was going to try and get more active this year, and first fight of the year was kaput. Was interested, though, that Top Rank still promoted this card a good bit after Jalalev even pulled out, because they usually don't. All of these the Tiger cards, I think, are a deal with Top Rank to stream on ESPN+, and they don't usually promote them unless it's a big card that's with a Top Rank fighter, like Christian and Billy, like Arslanbek Makhmudov, like Artur Beterbiev, or like Bakodir Jalalev. Jalalev no longer ended up fighting. They still promoted it. Arthur Byarslanov defeated Muhammad Mamon in round 2 of the main event, just fully ran through him. I thought that it was a good matchup for where Byarslanov was at in his career, but, the guy is just a ruthless fighter, just a lot of power, full speed, full pressure, just would not lay off him. Wasn't giving Mamon any respect either. He wasn't even really defending himself. Mamon was landing some good shots, but, Byarslanov would just move through him and just keep on going. And, there was a good minute there where Mamon didn't even throw a punch. And was just getting beat up around the ring. And I was okay, when is the ref going to stop this? He finally stops it in round 2. I think Mamon got dropped in round 1. No, he got dropped earlier in round 2. Very, very good performance from him. Albert Ramirez in the co-main stopped Marco Kalic in round 3. He had a pretty good knockdown to seal the deal. Very good fighter. He's ranked in the top 5 with all 5 sanctioning bodies. All 4 sanctioning bodies. So, he's really close to getting a title shot. He is at the 175-pound division. So, I'm not sure, how close he is to actually getting that title shot after Beterbiev and Bivol rematch. And the winner of that faces Benavidez. And then you got guys like Joshua Buatsi who are also waiting in the wings. So, we'll see what really ends up happening with him. But he's definitely deserving of one. Very excited to see what he does next. It was a good performance. Took him a little bit, round 1, you could even give Kalic that round. It wasn't very, didn't seem like he really wanted to put in that much effort. And then you see why in round 2, just runs through him and stops him in round 3. Some good fighters in the undercard. Moreno Fendero looked good. Christopher Guerrero looked very good, I thought. You had Mehmet Unal, who had a very good stoppage win as well. And you had Avery Martin Duval, who had the only decision on the card and was even dropped in round 2 with a jab and a slip there. So it was kind of a flash knockdown, but knockdown nonetheless. Had to come through some early adversity, got the win. Very good performance from all of the the Tiger team. I really like these events. They're very entertaining. This one, I thought all the fights went super quick, and it still was over in 3.5 hours, but I would have preferred them to move in between fights quicker. It still felt like we were waiting 15, 20 minutes in between fights. Because we could have gotten through that card in 2.5, 3 hours instead of 3.5. But regardless, good event. Next one is March 14th, where they're going to do Eric Bazinian and Stephen Butler. That's an amazing fight for them to make. They have so much talent in the 168-pound division. They got Billy and Iglesias, who they're trying to keep away until they get world championships, then unify them. And, if you just look at Bazinian and Butler, both probably not in the position for a title shot right now. Why not match him up? I think Bazinian beats him, but very excited for that fight. Okay, let's talk about UFC 312 this weekend. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. This card sucks. It gets so bad. For a UFC pay-per-view, I mean, it's ridiculous. The UFC Saudi Arabia card last week was so good for a fight night. That shit could have been the pay-per-view, and this could have been the fight night. Minus, if you switch the main events, I guess. But even like Adesanya fighting was like a pay-per-view, and could have been a main event. And so in the MVP Shar Magomedov, that could have been a co-main event on a pay-per-view easily. So it's weird. I don't know. I think honestly, with the reasoning is because of that Saudi Arabia card that Riyadh season pays for these events. They wanted a big fight. I know that they wanted a pay-per-view this year. I don't know if they'll get that, but they wanted to have a big fight in Saudi Arabia. They wanted to have a big card, so I think that they paid for UFC to put a lot of talent on that card. And so because of that, UFC didn't want to spend as much on this card. And so we have a lot of Australian talent. I mean, you have Justin Tafa on the card, who's a pretty fun heavyweight from what I remember. Yeah, I don't know. And then you've got Ilya's brother is on the prelims, so that's kind of cool. And literally, like if you look at this main card, it's Jake Matthews versus Francisco Prado opening it up, then Jimmy Crute versus Rodolfo Bellato, and then Justin Tafa versus Taliesin Teixeira. Those are like the early prelims on a pay-per-view, usually. Or even like opening fights on like a UFC fight night main card. Like it's just it just doesn't make any sense to me how, they want people to pay $80 for this. Granted, the top two fights are brilliant. Zhang Weili and Tatiana Suarez is such a good fight. I'm really, really excited for that. Suarez is undefeated. Really is going to give Zhang some big issues. I hope Zhang Weili can pull it off. I'm not sure. I did see at the weigh-in that Zhang Weili came out as the Joker and Suarez came out as Batman. That was pretty fun. I like to see that they're, like having some respect and even some like fun games together. If I were to pick, I'd have to go. I feel Zhang Weili probably, but Suarez is very capable of pulling this off. But I'd have to say Zhang Weili by decision maybe. And then as for the main event, Strickland and DDP, I kind of feel like this one's going to go the distance again. And it's hard to say because their last fight was so close. A lot of people thought that Strickland was robbed. When it's a close fight, it's not a robbery. I still thought that DDP won that one. I kind of feel like he may do it again just because of the way the story's been going. That, I don't know, I feel like I just see DDP being the champion for a bit. And Strickland, coming up short again. And potentially DDP even putting more of a stamp on this fight than he did in the last one. Because as you know, like DDP is a very awkward style. He's like he is the best bad fighter out there because he doesn't look good when he's in the cage, but he somehow always gets it done. Meanwhile, Strickland is very, very technical. He's very much like a boxer. He's very orthodox. He's very tactical. He's kind of boring the way he just jabs, but he's one of the best boxers in the UFC. So it's a complete clash of styles. And last time, that wild style of DDP was just enough to, out-volume and, get the title fight victory over Sean Strickland. I think that this fight will go the distance again, and I think I'm just going to pick DDP again. But I could be wrong. Both of these fights are really good fights, and it's a great main and co-main for a pay-per-view. It's just that the undercard is not good at all. But I'm still excited for those two fights. Should be a really fun night. Yeah, let's do it. I love that we're getting so many, early on this year, we're getting so many UFC cards with 2 title fights on it. It looks like in April, 3/14 is going to be Ilia Topuria. I think it was going to be against Volk. I don't know if that's still the plan. And then Pantoja and Kai Kara France on the undercard as the co-main event, which is it's a great doubleheader. Love that. So we'll see what happens. Should be a fun card. I'm going to pick DDP and Zhang Weili. Watch me be wrong with both of them, but I wouldn't be surprised if both these fights go the distance. Also on Saturday, we have a big boxing card in Manchester. Derek Chisora's 49th fight, his last fight in the United Kingdom, wants his 50th fight to be in Africa and then retire after that. He was meant to fight Jarrell Miller. Jarrell Miller they weren't able to get it over the line, which sucks because that would have been a fantastic build-up and a good fight. He's now in with Otto Wallin, who I think is actually a good opponent for him. I think it's a great fight. But when I think about it, I'm like, Wallin is just going to make this a boring fight, but he's going to coast to a decision. He's just going to outbox and make it not entertaining, and he's going to get a win. So, which is going to suck, especially because this is Derek's last hurrah in England, and he's going to have so many fans come out, and it's going to be such a big event, and Wallin is just going to, make them not want to pay their money, and Chisora is going to be like, well, that's how I leave this country? It's just a little bit. I mean, if you had him leave after the Joe Joyce fight, which was a close fight, but Chisora got the win, and it was a really exciting fight, that would have made more sense. Just in case of like what you want to leave your career off of. And I don't know, I could be wrong, but I just see Wallin making this a pretty boring fight. It's an IBF eliminator for the number 2 spot, which is hilarious. Neither of these guys should be fighting for a title, especially not Chisora. He literally is going to fight only one more time after this, so it's just pointless. But whatever. Then on the undercard, it's actually a really good undercard. Quite surprising. The UFC pay-per-view is not good at all, and then the non-pay-per-view in boxing is very good. Masoud Abdullah versus Zach Miller is for the, I believe it's just the Commonwealth. Yeah, Commonwealth Featherweight Championship. That's a really good fight, I think. Jack Rafferty is going to defend his British and Commonwealth titles against Reese McMillan. Another good fight. Zach Parker returns. He was meant to fight Willie Hutchinson, of course. Unfortunately, Hutchinson got injured, I think, like 5 or 6 days before the fight, which is so frustrating because he's a very good light heavyweight. Was hoping to see him return. Parker, I thought, was a great opponent to come back to. That was going to be a great fight. No longer happening. You got Nathan Heaney returning on the card from his first defeat. Both of these guys aren't with the best opposition, but decent enough records so that, they should be okay, but they should both get stoppage wins. Nelson Hisa, who is one of Queensberry's latest heavyweight signings, he's going to return against an undefeated opponent as well. They're both undefeated for the WBO European Heavyweight Championship. So, that's 6 fights right there that are 10, 12 rounders that I'm really excited for all of them. Undercard, you've got Walter Fury, Joe Cooper, Lewis Williams, Jermaine Deliweo, something like that, which is Derek Chisora's cousin or nephew, I think even. I'm not sure, but, really good undercard. I'm really excited for that one. That's in Manchester at the Co-op Live. It'll be on TNT Sports in the UK and DAZN here in the US. We're going to talk a lot about Queensberry and DAZN later on, but, yeah, I'm excited for this card. I think it should be fun. Also this weekend, we have a GBM show this afternoon, which is headlined by Shaquille Thompson, who is in the top 10 with the WBO. He's in, I think, just an 8-rounder, which is disappointing. He wasn't meant to headline. He was supposed to be Shaquan Pitters challenging the European champion. I'm not sure what happened to that guy, Dos Santos, but he's no longer fighting him, and the belt is still on the line. So I guess that champion wasn't able to fight, so okay, we're going to take your belt because they want Pitters to fight for it more, and now he's the co-main event, which I just don't really get it. They also lost a women's British title fight, which was going to be pretty good. Regardless, Shaquille Thompson headlines, and it makes sense because I felt like this week GBM has been promoting him way more than the Pitters fight, and I'm like, what's going on here? I thought he wasn't main event. In terms of, okay, he is main event. I'm excited for it, though. Should be a pretty fun night of fights. There's a lot of fights on that card, so hopefully not too many 40-36s. But, yeah, it should be good. I'm excited to see Shaquille Thompson fight because he almost got the Janibek fight. Saturday as well, we have BKFC in Newcastle. I know the main event is a cruiserweight UK title fight, which the BKFC UK title means nothing. But it should be a pretty fun night of a ton of Scousers going at it. Yeah, that should be fun. That'll be on BKFC app and DAZN. ProBox TV is putting on a big show. Ramon Cardenas versus Brian Acosta. Winner of this fight could really inch themselves towards a world title. I think Cardenas is possibly in the top 10, not pound for pound, but the top 10 overall for super bantamweight. So, once those titles free up, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he can get a title shot. But he's a very good fighter. In with Acosta, who's a good opponent. On the undercard, you've got Shavkat, not Shavkat Rakhmonov. That's the UFC welterweight, but I think his name is like Shavkatsdin Rakhminov. I know his last name is Rakhminov, but yeah, Shavkatsdan Rakhminov. He returns in a 10-rounder in the co-main event. He had the loss to Joe Cordina and then another loss to Sugar Nunez. So he's now back on a pro box card. So that should be pretty good. That's the co-main event. Decent undercard there. I think 6 fights will be broadcast. It's in San Antonio in a smaller arena. So cool to see pro box branching out. They were meant to have Lester Martinez and Joshawn James in the co-main event, which would have been an awesome fight, 168 pounds between 2 undefeated fighters. That is no longer happening. Martinez fell ill. It's the second time it's been postponed right at the 11th hour. But we already have a date. It's going to be March 22nd, not too far out, on a soon-to-be-announced pro box card. So that's good. Sunday, we have another Sunday fight, which is interesting. We won last week. A lot more Sunday fights this year. Tom Welland returns on a top-tier show. Not a Wasserman show, a top-tier show. He's in the main event. Pretty good. I'm decently excited for it. It'll be in Brentwood, I believe. I think Tom Welland is a very, very good prospect. He's really exciting to watch. Wasserman has got a handful of really good prospects, and Tom Welland is one of them. He's maybe one of the best of them. He's fighting Michael Ramabaleza, who's 18-21. So we're going to get a 6-0 versus an 18-21 fight in the main event of a DAZN broadcast, which is nuts. And you've got some pretty good fighters on the undercard. Thomas Asamba returns after his loss to Charlie Edwards. His opponent is 0-30, and he's in a 4-rounder after being the European champion. I mean, I know that Asamba didn't really have an insane record. He's also 13-9, but 0-30 is insane. Just saying. And some other decent fighters on the undercard: Kevin Ravel, Louis Pachetti, Zachary Fee. Yeah, I mean, not a ton of big name fighters or prospects at all, but you got a good 8-fight card there, all pretty short fights, so should be entertaining tomorrow. I think there should be more. Though on BoxRec they only have 8, but I feel like they announced Anis Taj was supposed to be on the card as well and some other fights. So we'll see, but pretty good weekend of fights. I'm excited. Had the first fight on Thursday, 1 on Friday, 4 on Saturday, and then 1 on Sunday. So, yeah, excited for the fights this weekend. All right, let's run through some news that have been going on in the last few days. Not too many notes. Just a few headlines. Oscar Duarte will now fight Miguel Medueno, the same guy who Keyshawn fought in July of 2024 on that Shakur Newark card. Went the distance with him, so I think Medueno will be a decent opponent for Duarte. I bet Duarte will run through him. Medueno is coming up from 135. Duarte was meant to fight Prograis, of course. Prograis got injured, is now out. Excuse me. My issue with this fight is I really don't hate it. I don't think it's that bad. It's just that they're going to do a whole arena for this, and it's not that exciting of a fight. I don't know why they didn't just bring up Kenneth Sims to the main event. They literally had already made Duarte versus Sims for the Latino night in November before Sims got injured. I mean, that's a fantastic fight. Duarte will be your favorite. I guess it's just that Golden Boy doesn't want to match up 2 of their guys, but I think it's a brilliant fight. I think they should just do that one. But whatever, it's going to be Duarte Medueno. Still get the fight card, which is good. Carlos Adames is being stopped from entering Saudi Arabia prior to his date. So he was given a date that he was supposed to enter, and he's not allowed to. He tried to get on an earlier flight to get out there, the customary 2 weeks before to, get acclimated to the time zone, to the weather, altitude, whatever, So he was stuck in the Vegas airport. The organizers were not letting him get on the flight until the date. I don't know how far out they wanted him to get there, maybe 10 days or so, because he tried to leave over 2 weeks. His whole team is already on their way there, or already there by now. They were all allowed passage, but not him. So I don't really know what the situation is there. I'm sure that Hamza Shiraz is already there. So it's a little bit questionable. I wonder if Frank Warren and them are pulling some shady tricks, trying to say, oh, no, find any advantage that they can, which I think is pretty messed up. Hopefully they can sort this out and let him enter. I was worried at first when I saw the headline that they're saying that they're not allowing him to go at all for some, travel issues. I don't know. Thankfully, it seems like he will be able to go. They're just trying to undercut his amount of time to acclimate. which is messed up. Savannah Marshall will not be fighting on the March 7th card due to difficulties with Boxer. Apparently they had issues negotiating, not negotiating with opponents, negotiating between Team Marshall and Boxer, which is really interesting. And she had some words to say about them. I wonder if she's going to stay with Shalom or may try and find a way out. But she will not be defending her. I think she only has one world title left, if any. She hasn't fought in boxing in a year and a half. But I don't know if she's going to try and, go somewhere else or what the plan was for her. But I know that they were trying to get her to have a world title fight on that undercard, which sucks that we won't get it because that would have made it a really big card. But still a good card nonetheless. Jack Catterall, Arnold Barboza had their first live face-off. It was with Eddie Hearn in between them, and it was in front of a live audience. They had some pretty good trash talk. I'm excited for that fight. I think it's going to be brilliant. It's essentially a world title fight because we know Tio will likely not fight the winner, and the winner of this will be the interim champion and likely upgraded to the full champion later. And I think it's a brilliant fight. Catterall is definitely the A side. It's in the UK, but I don't know. Part of me is kind of thinking that Barboza may win. He's been the guy that everyone has overlooked, and he's finally getting his shot at a mandatory position. I wouldn't be surprised if he just pulls it out again. I thought he was going to lose against Jose Ramirez, and he totally won that fight. I think it's going to be a pretty boring fight. Both of them are kind of back foot counter punchers, so I think it won't be very exciting, but I don't know. Part of me feels like Barboza could pull an upset here. Then again, Catterall's a very good fighter, and Catterall is the altogether better fighter. But I don't know. I'm really excited for this fight. I think it's going to be great. Whitaker Cameron 2 is looking likely to happen Birmingham, April 19th. That's the date. Fraser Clark will be on that undercard, as will Sam Eggington, apparently, who I don't know, but I'm guessing is from Birmingham. I'm really excited that they're going to immediately run back Ben Whitaker and Liam Cameron. This will be a big show for Boxer as well. It'll be Whitaker's first time headlining, which I assume he will be. I don't know who you put Clark with, but I think it makes a lot of sense for them to run this one back. Because when you put a prospect in there to a step-up fight and they don't impress, especially if they kind of, I think that Whitaker Cameron was fine being a draw. But you look like Johnny Fisher, Dave Allen, when he won that fight, people are demanding, no, you have to fight him, rematch him next. So I'm glad that looks like it's going to happen. Apparently that's going to happen, end of May. But glad that we're going to get Whitaker Cameron too. Because I think Liam Cameron's a very good fighter, and I think Ben Whitaker is potential to be an incredible fighter. So, yeah, really excited for that one. The Murataya Abdullayev fight is apparently set for April 5th in Vegas at the Palms Resort Casino, which is where Murataya's fight with Tevin Farmer was. That'll be the same day as the Janibek card. So, where Janibek was supposed to headline that Murataya Farmer card before he got pulled out last minute. But yeah, so that's going to be a fun day for ESPN if that happens. 2 broadcasts in one day, doing similar to Matchroom, although the Kazakhstan card is not a top-ranked card. They're just associates. But I'm glad that they're getting this fight in the U.S. because I was worried if I'd be able to watch it, if it'd be able to get broadcast here if it was on an RCC show. And, top-ranked, you want to secure those fights for your fighters. You want to be able to put them on, pay the big bucks. Interim world title, again, could be upgraded to world champion. This is a very good fight. Murataya's never fought someone on the level of Abdullayev, and same goes around for Abdullayev, but I don't know. I really don't know who wins this fight just yet, but excited that it's not going to be that far away, apparently, just 2 months. Dominic Cruz retires 2 weeks early, so he was meant to have his retirement fight in the co-main event of UFC Seattle. He just got injured. I think it was a shoulder or something. I'm not sure, but pretty bad injury and just decided to retire. This is totally the right decision. If you were only going to have one more fight and you got injured, there's no need in, okay, let me recover for 6 months and then have another fight to then I can have my retirement fight. It sucks you don't get your retirement fight, to really send it off. But, if you're if you get injured, that's a sign. That's a sign that, okay, I'm done, So it's a good decision. Former 2-time champion in the UFC, congratulations, happy retirement. Yeah, sucks we won't get to see him one last time on that card, but makes sense. Joe Joyce versus Dillian White and Lawrence Coley versus Richard Riakporhe apparently set for a heavyweight doubleheader to be announced on Monday. So we know that Frank Warren and Queensberry will be doing a DAZN press conference on Monday to announce their slate of shows. We know Lee Wood and Anthony Kakache will be fighting May 10th in Nottingham. We know that Moses Atauma is likely to return soon. I don't know if that'll be on a Riyadh season show or if he's going to headline his own card. I'd like him to do that. Should be against a big name, and if that's the case, it'll be announced on Monday, I'm sure. I wonder how many shows they're going to announce because I didn't think this was in the pipeline at all. Joe Joyce was supposed to have a return fight on the March 1st card with Gardner and Jimenez, but looks like that's not going to happen anymore, which I'm not mad at. He's at a point in his career that I only want to see him in fun domestic fights, if not retire. There's no need in rebuilding because he's not going to be a world champion. I think the Dillian White fight makes a lot of sense. It's a competitive fight. I'm not sure who wins that. Loser should probably retire. Then you've got Okoli and Riakporhe, which is another great fight. Two guys that just moved up from cruiserweight. This would be Riakporhe's first fight at heavyweight. I totally think that Okoli will win, especially just because of how much he's ballooned in weight. He's 260 pounds, which is nuts. He was fighting at 200 pounds less than 2 years ago. So I would like to see Okoli and Riakporhe fight. You know, it's just that I don't know. Riakporhe wasn't necessarily world title level like Okoli was. He challenged and was dominated by CBS. So I kind of see this going for Okoli, and I don't understand why Riakporhe would take this. It's his comeback fight after a world title fight, you know, where he's going to be a huge underdog in again. So, you know, first loss, and now he's going to go likely back into a second loss. Doesn't make a ton of sense to me, but regardless, I'm excited. I think it's cool that fighters are taking, you know, just saying like, yeah, screw it, let's go. You know, Riakporhe's not going to take a little gimmick warm-up fight. He's just going to go right in with Okoli. So excited for that card to be announced on Monday. That's all that I've got for you today. Episode 14. 15 will likely come out on Sunday or Monday, depending on if I'm going to do it before or after the top tier card. But, yeah, good weekend of fights coming up. All the Canelo stuff is crazy, but it seems like this week is over in terms of the roller coaster Canelo put us on, and he's got a good plan for the next 2 years. Yeah, I'll do another episode after this weekend. We'll talk about UFC 312. We'll talk about Chisora, Wallin, all the other stuff that's going to go down this weekend. Very excited. Follow me on X. I'm going to be tweeting a lot on Saturday, I'm sure, as I usually do. Thank you for listening. Peace out.